The sea is in front of them. Pharaoh's forces are behind them. The children of Israel can see the approaching army, and they can see no path through the water. They have left their homes at night. They have followed Prophet Musa into the darkness. Now the distance between slavery and freedom appears to end at the shoreline. Some among them say they are about to be overtaken. Musa looks toward the sea and answers with certainty, "No, his Lord is with him, he will be guided." But how does a leader speak of guidance when the path has not yet appeared? How does a community learn freedom after generations of oppression? And what happens when people cross the sea physically, but continue carrying the habits of captivity within themselves? Welcome to the Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story, and every story carries guidance. Today we complete the journey of Prophet Musa and Prophet Harun, from the signs sent upon Pharaoh's people to the sea, the mountain, the wilderness, the limits of human knowledge, and the final surrender of a great messenger. Part 2 ended with a public defeat for Pharaoh's narrative. The magicians he had gathered recognized that Musa's sign was not part of their craft. They fell in prostration and declared belief in the Lord of Musa and Harun. Pharaoh threatened them. They refused to give him authority over their conscience, yet the ruler did not repent. A public sign had become clear. Experts had recognized it. The ruler had been challenged directly. Still, the oppression continued. This is one of the difficult realities the story asks us to face. Truth becoming visible does not guarantee that every person will accept it. Evidence can correct an honest misunderstanding. It cannot force humility into a person determined to preserve pride. Pharaoh's rejection was no longer caused by a lack of warning. It had become a pattern. The Qarun tells us that the people of Pharaoh experienced years of famine and reduced crops. When ease returned, they treated it as something they naturally deserved. When hardship came, they blamed Musa and those with him. They did not examine their own conduct. They did not recognize the warning. They assigned moral responsibility according to convenience. Good conditions proved their greatness. Difficult conditions became the fault of the messenger. This is a powerful form of self-deception. A person can interpret every success as personal merit and every failure as someone else's interference. A leader can take credit for every improvement while blaming critics for every consequence. An institution can describe growth as evidence of wisdom and decline as sabotage by outsiders. Under such reasoning, no event can produce self-examination. Success confirms the ego. Failure protects the ego. The conclusion never changes. Pharaoh's people announced that no matter what sign Musa brought, they would not believe. That statement reveals that the decision had been made before the evidence arrived. They were not asking what the next sign would show. They were declaring in advance that nothing would be allowed to change them. This is not skepticism. Skepticism examines. This was refusal. The Qarun records distinct signs sent upon them: the flood, locusts, lice, frogs, and blood. We do not need to add horror details. The purpose is not to create a frightening spectacle. Each sign disrupted the security through which the society had maintained its arrogance. The land, food, water, and ordinary patterns of life could no longer be treated as permanently under Pharaoh's control. When hardship descended, the people appealed to Musa. They asked him to call upon his Lord. They promised that if the punishment was removed, they would believe and release the children of Israel. Relief came. The promise was broken. Then another crisis came. Another appeal was made. Another promise followed. Relief returned. The promise was broken again. The pattern exposes a difference between wanting rescue from pain and wanting moral transformation. A person may dislike the consequence without rejecting the conduct that produced it. A leader may want the crisis to end while refusing the reform that would prevent its return. A family may pray for relief from conflict while each person protects the habit feeding the conflict. An organization may demand that a public scandal disappear while resisting accountability. In the moment of pain, promises are easy. The test begins when comfort returns. Pharaoh's people wanted Allah's signs removed. They did not want Pharaoh's arrogance removed from their society. They wanted the children of Israel's Lord to relieve them while continuing to deny his command concerning the children of Israel. They wanted the benefit without the obedience. Relief without repentance often becomes permission to repeat the same wrong. The temporary return of comfort is misread as approval. The person says, "The problem passed, therefore nothing must change." But the passing of a consequence does not transform injustice into justice. It may instead create another opportunity to return before the final consequence arrives. Musa and Harun continued carrying the message. The brothers had entered Pharaoh's court with gentle speech and an uncompromising demand: "Release the children of Israel." Pharaoh had responded with accusation, spectacle, threats, and broken promises. The confrontation could not continue forever. Musa was commanded to lead the servants of Allah away at night. The departure was not staged as a public celebration. It began under darkness. Families left the environment in which generations had lived under control. The Quran does not give us a census. It does not name every route. It does not identify the modern geographical point at which they crossed. It does not provide the name of the exact pharaoh. The guidance does not depend on claims that cannot be confirmed. What is clear is that they left. Pharaoh learned of the departure and mobilized forces from the cities. He described the departing people as a small group who had angered him. The language attempted to reduce them. They were presented as few, insignificant, disruptive. A threat requiring immediate response. This is how domination can react when the oppressed simply leave. The ruler who refused to release them now treated their departure as an act against him. Their labor, movement, and future had become part of what he believed he owned. When they walked away, he experienced their freedom as theft. Controlling systems often behave this way. An employee resigns from an abusive environment, and the institution describes the departure as disloyalty. A family member establishes a healthy boundary, and the controlling relative describes it as betrayal. A community demands independence, and the empire describes liberation as rebellion. The question beneath the anger is the same: who gave you permission to stop belonging to me? The children of Israel did not wait for Pharaoh to understand freedom. They followed the command to leave. Pharaoh's forces pursued them at sunrise. The people leaving Egypt had known oppression. They had seen the signs. They had witnessed the magician's transformation. They had heard the message of Musa and Harun. Yet when they saw the forces approaching and the sea ahead, their immediate response was fear. They said they would be overtaken. The miracle had not yet appeared. They could only see the boundaries of the visible situation: water, army, families, no ordinary route. This moment reveals the difference between remembering a principle and standing inside the event that requires it. It is easy to speak about tawakkul when the path is visible. The deeper test comes when obedience has brought you to a place where the next step cannot be calculated. Musa did not tell them that the army was imaginary. He did not deny the sea. He did not claim that fear was unreasonable because danger was absent. He answered the conclusion they had drawn from the danger. They believed the situation meant they would certainly be captured. Musa rejected that conclusion. His Lord was with him. He would be guided. Notice the timing. The sea had not yet opened. Musa's certainty was not based on seeing the path. It was based on knowing who had commanded the journey. This does not mean people should make reckless decisions and then demand miraculous rescue. Musa had received revelation. The command was clear. The distinction is essential. Tawakkul is not confidence in every personal impulse. It is trust in Allah while obeying what He has actually commanded and using the means available. Musa had followed the command to leave. He had led the people. He had reached the sea. Now the same Lord who commanded the departure would provide the next instruction. Musa was commanded to strike the sea with his staff. The staff had once been an ordinary tool in Madian. It had become a sign before Pharaoh. Now it was connected, by the command of Allah, with a path through the sea. The water divided. The Quran describes each separated portion as resembling a great mountain. A dry path appeared where human beings had seen only water. The children of Israel crossed. Musa crossed. Harun crossed. Families who had lived under Pharaoh's system moved through a road Pharaoh had not built and could not control. The sea did not open because the people had discovered a hidden engineering method. It did not open because Musa's staff possessed independent power. It opened by the command of Allah. The object remained a staff. The messenger remained a servant. The miracle belonged to Allah alone. Pharaoh and his forces entered the path. The ruler who had interpreted every sign as something he could defeat now treated the open sea as another space into which he could extend power. This is arrogance at its final boundary. A sign that should have produced surrender became an opportunity for further pursuit. The path was safety for those following the command of Allah. The same path became the place of Pharaoh's destruction when he entered it in continued rebellion. The water closed. Musa and those with him were saved. Pharaoh and the pursuing forces drowned. The Quran records that, as drowning overtook him, Pharaoh declared belief in the one believed in by the children of Israel. But this declaration came when the consequence was no longer avoidable. It was not the repentance he had repeatedly refused while choice remained. He had received signs. He had received gentle speech. He had received warnings. He had watched experts recognize the truth. He had experienced relief after promising change. Again and again, he returned to arrogance. At the final moment, he could no longer preserve the throne, army, or claim. The Quran presents his body as a sign for later generations. The exact location and historical identification remain disputed, and this episode will not make archaeological claims that cannot be confirmed. The moral sign is already clear. The ruler who treated human lives as his property could not command the water. The man who asked the magicians how they could believe without his permission could not give himself permission to escape death. The person who claimed authority beyond human limits met the limit every human being eventually meets. Pharaoh's story is not only about one ancient ruler. It is about the human desire to delay accountability until accountability can no longer be avoided. A person may say, "I will change after this contract, after this election, after the children grow, after the company stabilizes, after I have secured what I want, after the danger passes." But repeated delay changes the person who is delaying. The heart becomes practiced in refusal. The lie becomes part of identity. Repentance is not guaranteed at the hour a person chooses. Pharaoh saw signs and promised change only when pain made resistance costly. When relief returned, arrogance returned with it. His final statement could not erase the life built through repeated rejection. The children of Israel stood on the other side. The ruler who had oppressed them was gone. The pursuing force was gone. The immediate danger was gone. This should have been the moment when every internal problem disappeared. But external liberation and internal transformation are not the same event. A prison door can open in one moment. Learning how to live freely may take a generation. The people had lived under a system that controlled their movement, work, safety, and collective imagination. They had learned to respond to power through fear. They had lived among a society filled with distorted worship. They had seen Pharaoh present himself as the center of authority. Crossing the sea removed Pharaoh from their physical future. It did not automatically remove every habit his world had planted within them. Soon after rescue, they encountered people devoted to idols. Some among the children of Israel asked Musa to provide an object of worship like the objects those people possessed. The request was astonishing after the sea. But the Qarun includes it because miracles do not eliminate the human need for education, worship, discipline, and memory. A person can witness rescue and still misunderstand the one who rescued them. A community can reject one form of domination while imitating the culture that surrounded it. People often believe that once an oppressive leader is removed, justice will naturally fill the space. But a society can remove the ruler and preserve the ruler's assumptions. It can reject the palace while rebuilding smaller palaces everywhere. It can condemn the old propaganda while creating new propaganda for its own side. It can celebrate liberation while continuing to seek visible objects that feel easier to control than sincere worship of the unseen creator. Musa reminded his people that the people devoted to those idols were following falsehood. He reminded them of the favor Allah had given the children of Israel by rescuing them from Pharaoh's people. Memory was part of their protection, not nostalgia, not endless emotional retelling. Moral memory. Remember what oppression did. Remember who delivered you. Remember what kind of worship allowed Pharaoh to imagine himself beyond accountability. Remember so that you do not rebuild the same structure under a different symbol. Musa then received an appointment at the mountain. The Qarun records 30 nights completed by another 10, forming 40 nights. Before leaving, Musa placed Harun in responsibility among the people. He instructed his brother to act rightly and not follow the path of those who spread corruption. This was no minor assignment. Harun had stood with Musa before Pharaoh. He had carried the message in the court. He had faced threats alongside his brother. Now he was responsible for the community while Musa went to the appointed meeting. The setting had changed. The leadership challenge had not disappeared. Before, the danger stood outside the community in the form of Pharaoh. Now the danger would emerge from within. External enemies are often easier to recognize than internal corruption. Pharaoh's oppression was visible. The next crisis would arrive through impatience, persuasion, social pressure, and an object created from the community's own ornaments. At the appointed time, Musa's Lord spoke to him. Musa asked to see Allah. He was told that he could not see him, and his attention was directed toward the mountain. When Allah manifested his glory to the mountain, it was leveled, and Musa fell unconscious. When he recovered, he glorified Allah, turned in repentance, and affirmed his belief. We do not depict this event. We do not imagine the appearance of Allah. We do not create visual effects intended to represent divine manifestation. We remain within the words of revelation. The event taught Musa the limit of human capacity. The prophet who had stood before Pharaoh, crossed the sea, and carried signs remained a human servant. Prophetic rank did not transform the created being into something able to contain every reality. Musa received the tablets containing instruction and guidance. He was commanded to take them with determination and direct his people toward what was best within them. Freedom now required covenant. The sea had removed an immediate enemy. Revelation would teach the rescued community how to live. This is one of the most important transitions in the entire story. A movement can unite people around escape. Building a just community requires more: rules, memory, worship, responsibility, restraint, protection of the vulnerable, accountability for leaders and followers. A population cannot live permanently on the emotional energy of liberation. The day after the celebration, decisions must be made, resources must be shared, disagreements must be managed, power must be limited. The truth must remain above personalities. The appointment at the mountain represents the movement from rescue toward moral order. But while Musa was away, the community was tested. The Samiri led people toward a calf made from ornaments. The calf produced a sound. People were told that this was their object of worship and the object of worship of Musa. The Quran directs attention toward the obvious weakness of the object. It could not speak to them, it could not guide them, it possessed no power to harm or benefit them, yet people became devoted to it. False worship does not always attract people because the object is rationally convincing. It may attract because the object is visible, manageable, immediate, emotionally stimulating. The calf gave people something they could gather around while Musa was absent. The covenant required patience. The object provided instant certainty. The worship of Allah required submission to a Lord who could not be reduced to an image. The calf could be seen, shaped, carried, and claimed. Human beings often prefer a false certainty they can touch over a true responsibility that requires patience. The modern object may not look like a calf. It may be wealth, political identity, a leader's personality, a company, a nation, a public image, a technology. A movement, anything created can become an object of distorted devotion when people give it the obedience, hope, fear, or moral authority that belongs only to Allah. Harun warned the people. He told them they were being tested. He reminded them that their true Lord was the most merciful. He called them to follow him and obey his direction. They refused. They insisted they would remain devoted to the calf until Musa returned. Harun faced a leadership crisis with no easy option. He had authority from Musa. He possessed prophetic truth, but a large part of the community had become attached to the false object. The Quran records that the people weakened and overpowered him and nearly killed him. Harun feared that a forceful attempt beyond his capacity would divide the children of Israel into open conflict. He resisted the calf. He did not approve it. He also tried to preserve the community until Musa returned. This is not cowardice. It is leadership under constrained power. A leader may know exactly what is wrong while lacking the ability to remove it immediately without producing greater destruction. The difference between compromise and restraint lies in what the leader continues to affirm. Harun did not rename the calf as acceptable. He did not join the worship. He warned the people. He preserved the truth. He endured pressure. He waited for the return of the leader whose instruction he had been asked to uphold. Musa returned angry and deeply grieved. He had gone to receive guidance for the people. He returned to find some of them worshipping an object they had made. His anger was not wounded ego. The covenant had been violated. The people had turned away after rescue. The event threatened the spiritual foundation of the entire community. Musa confronted Harun. He seized his brother by the head or beard in the intensity of the moment. Harun appealed to him as the son of his mother. He explained that the people had overpowered him and nearly killed him. He feared Musa would accuse him of dividing the children of Israel and failing to preserve the responsibility entrusted to him. The brothers' exchange shows how leaders can misread one another during crisis. Musa saw the visible result. The calf remained. People had gone astray. Harun carried knowledge of what had happened during Musa's absence. The warnings, the refusal, the pressure, the threat, the limited choices. Once Harun explained, Musa did not continue treating him as part of the rebellion. He turned to Allah and asked forgiveness for himself and his brother, and asked that both be admitted into divine mercy. This is a critical model of leadership correction. Urgency can produce a mistaken first judgment. A responsible leader must remain able to receive missing context. Musa's anger did not become permanent refusal to hear Harun. He listened. He corrected the relationship. He prayed for his brother. Leaders often damage organizations not because they initially misunderstand, but because pride prevents them from revising the judgment after new information arrives. A leader sees a failed result and assumes laziness. The person responsible explains a missing resource, a threat, or a decision made to prevent greater harm. The leader then faces a second test: protect the first accusation or respond to the fuller truth. Musa returned to justice. He then confronted the Samiri. The Quran preserves the Samiri's explanation, including a claim involving a trace from the messenger. The interpretation of every detail has been discussed by commentators. This episode will not expand the claim into a visual supernatural story beyond what the Quran states. What is clear is that the Samiri admitted that his own soul had enticed him. Musa announced a consequence for him and destroyed the calf, scattering it so that it could no longer function as a center of devotion. Then Musa returned the people's attention to the central truth. Their object of worship was Allah alone. His knowledge encompasses all things. The response to false worship was not merely destroying an object. The deeper work was restoring understanding. An idol can be removed physically while remaining alive in the imagination. People can stop gathering around one symbol and quickly replace it with another. The heart must understand why the created object cannot carry divine authority. It cannot speak with ultimate truth. It cannot guide independently. It cannot control harm and benefit. It cannot become the source of moral reality. The calf crisis also reveals the danger of leadership absence. A healthy community should not depend so completely on one visible leader that truth collapses whenever that leader leaves the room. Musa had appointed Harun. The people had guidance. They had memory. They had recently crossed the sea. Still, many followed a persuasive alternative. Organizations often discover their true culture when the founder is absent. Families reveal their internal values when the parent is not watching. Teams reveal whether principles were understood or merely obeyed through proximity to authority. If the system depends entirely on one personality, it remains fragile. Musa's community had to learn that worship belonged to Allah whether Musa was visibly present or not. After the anger within Musa subsided, he took up the tablets. Their inscription contained guidance and mercy for those who held their Lord in reverent fear. Guidance and mercy belonged together. The law was not given merely to control a rescued people. It was given to protect them from rebuilding the destruction they had escaped. A command can feel restrictive when the harm it prevents is forgotten. The children of Israel had witnessed what happens when human desire is treated as supreme. Pharaoh's desire became law. The calf worshipper's desire became worship. Revelation placed both ruler and community under moral limits. If this journey is helping your family understand the story of Prophet Musa with greater clarity, take a moment to like this episode, subscribe to the Guided Hour, and share it with someone who may benefit. Your support helps more families discover thoughtful and reliable Islamic storytelling. Now, let us continue into the wilderness. The people were provided for. The Quran reminds them of shade given through clouds. Manna and quails were provided as food. When the community needed water, Musa prayed. He was commanded to strike a stone with his staff. 12 springs emerged, and each group knew its place of drinking. Again, the staff appears. At the sea, it was associated with a path through water. In the wilderness, it was associated with water emerging from stone. The staff did not possess power. The repetition directed the people toward the one commanding each event. Provision came in forms beyond their ordinary expectation. Food, shade, water, organization. Each group knew where to drink. The miracle did not produce chaos. Provision was distributed through recognizable access. This connects worship with administration. A community may speak beautifully about trust while failing to organize resources fairly. The springs were not only abundant, they were ordered. People knew their place. Leadership includes creating systems through which provision can reach people without constant conflict. The community was commanded to eat and drink from the provision of Allah and avoid spreading corruption in the land. Provision creates responsibility. Receiving more does not make a person morally independent. It increases the field within which character is tested. The people then complained about the food. They wanted the produce familiar from ordinary settled life: herbs, cucumbers, garlic, lentils, and onions. The issue was not that these foods were inherently forbidden. The response asked whether they wished to exchange what was better for what was less. Their dissatisfaction exposed how quickly extraordinary provision can become ordinary in human perception. Yesterday's answered prayer can become today's entitlement. A person asks desperately for employment. After receiving it, the person complains that the work lacks prestige. A family asks for stability. Once stable, the family becomes consumed by comparison. A community asks for freedom. Once free, it begins measuring success only by the material habits of the society it left. Gratitude does not mean people can never desire improvement. It means desire should not erase recognition. The question is not merely, what else do I want? It is also, what have I stopped seeing because it now arrives every day? The sea opened once. Water from the springs became repeated provision. Repeated mercy may be easier to ignore than dramatic mercy. Yet daily provision often sustains more life than the single event people remember. Musa later called his people to enter the holy land assigned to them. He reminded them of the favors of Allah and the prophets raised among them. He told them not to turn back. The people responded that a powerful population lived there. They refused to enter unless those people first left. Two faithful men encouraged them. They advised entering through the gate and placing their trust in Allah. The community refused again. Their response to Musa was deeply disrespectful. They told him to go with his Lord and fight while they remained behind. The people who had walked through the sea now refused to walk through a gate. This contrast reveals how trauma can survive rescue. At the sea, they had no alternative. They followed because capture stood behind them. At the gate, obedience required voluntary courage. They would have to act rather than only escape. A person may accept rescue while resisting responsibility. The children of Israel had been protected from Pharaoh, but many still understood themselves through weakness. They saw powerful people and concluded that action was impossible. Pharaoh's army was gone. Pharaoh's voice remained inside their expectations. Oppression teaches the victim to overestimate every opposing power and underestimate every capacity for faithful action. This is learned helplessness at the scale of a community. The people no longer needed Pharaoh to say they were weak. They repeated the conclusion themselves. Leadership after oppression must therefore do more than remove chains. It must rebuild agency, teach responsibility, develop courage, restore moral imagination, help people understand that obedience may require risk. Musa had spent years carrying a community that repeatedly saw the danger before seeing the promise. At the sea, he had said his Lord would guide him. At the gate, the people refused the guidance already given. Musa turned to Allah. He said that he possessed authority only over himself and his brother. The words reveal the limit of leadership. A prophet can teach, warn, remind, demonstrate, pray, lead, but he does not force sincere courage into every heart. A leader is responsible for faithful guidance, not for controlling every human choice. The land was forbidden to that disobedient generation for 40 years, during which they would wander. The consequence was connected to their refusal. They were not prepared to carry the responsibility before them. The wilderness became the space in which one generation's fear would pass and another future could emerge. This should not be used to speak arrogantly about people who have experienced oppression. The Qarun does not invite us to mock the rescued community. It invites us to understand the serious work required after rescue. Fear can be understandable and still require correction. Trauma can explain a response without making every response morally acceptable. Compassion and responsibility must remain together. A person who has been harmed deserves care. The same person may still be responsible for refusing to harm others and for developing the capacity to act when justice requires action. The Quranic account of Qarun introduces another danger within the people of Musa. Qarun was not one of Pharaoh's officials described as an outsider to the children of Israel. He was from the people of Musa. Yet he behaved arrogantly and oppressively toward them. The community had escaped an external tyrant. Now the Quran shows wealth creating a form of internal tyranny. Qarun possessed enormous treasures. The keys alone were described as burdensome for a group of strong people. His people advised him not to become prideful. They told him to seek the home of the hereafter through what Allah had given him, while not forgetting his lawful share of the world. They urged him to do good as Allah had done good to him and not seek corruption in the land. This advice was balanced. They did not tell him that possessing wealth was automatically sinful. They did not tell him to abandon every worldly benefit. They told him to place wealth within its proper moral order. Use what you have for the hereafter. Take a lawful share, do good. Do not use wealth to spread corruption. Qarun rejected the moral source of his wealth. He claimed that it had been given to him because of knowledge he possessed. Skill may have been involved. Knowledge may have been involved. Effort may have been involved. The falsehood was the word only. He treated his capacity as the complete explanation. No social conditions, no opportunities, no protection, no people, no health, no time, no mercy, no Allah, only himself. This is wealth becoming a theology of self-creation. The successful person begins to believe success proves complete independence. Because effort mattered, nothing else mattered. Because intelligence contributed, gratitude became unnecessary. Because the person learned how to create value, the person forgot who created the mind, body, materials, time, and world in which value could be created. Qarun appeared before his people in magnificent display. Those who desired worldly life wished they possessed what he had. They interpreted visible wealth as evidence of complete success. Those given knowledge answered differently. The reward of Allah was better for the person who believed and acted righteously, and such understanding required sabr. The two groups saw the same display. One saw a life to envy, the other saw a test. Social comparison depends on what remains outside the frame. People saw clothing, treasures, and presentation. They did not see the moral condition toward which arrogance was moving him. Modern displays operate the same way. People see the house, the company valuation, the title, the followers, the travel, the event, the car. The image, they rarely see the debt, fear, exploitation, family damage, isolation, or moral compromise that may exist outside the picture. This does not mean every wealthy person is secretly miserable or corrupt. That would also be false. It means visible possession cannot establish moral success. The earth swallowed Qarun and his home. The wealth that appeared to prove his security could not protect him. No supporting group saved him. Those who had wished for his position reconsidered. They recognized that provision expands and contracts by the will of Allah, and that their failure to receive Qarun's wealth may itself have protected them. This is a profound reversal. The unanswered desire of yesterday became the recognized mercy of today. People often evaluate an outcome before its full consequences become visible. I did not receive the promotion. I did not enter that partnership. I did not gain that platform. I did not obtain that level of wealth. The immediate conclusion is loss. But a person does not know every form of corruption, responsibility, exposure, or arrogance from which the closed door may have provided protection. We cannot claim that every disappointment hides a specific secret reason. Only Allah knows the unseen. The story teaches humility in evaluation. What looks like expansion may become destruction. What looks like restriction may include mercy. Musa's life also contains one of the Quran's most powerful lessons about knowledge. A great prophet became a student. The Quran tells us that Musa traveled with a young companion toward the meeting point of two seas. An authentic report explains that Musa had been asked who possessed the greatest knowledge among the people. After his answer did not return absolute knowledge to Allah, he was directed toward a servant of Allah who had been given knowledge Musa did not possess. The servant is identified in the authentic report as Al-Khidr. Musa set out to find him. This alone is extraordinary. Musa had received revelation. He had spoken with Allah. He had confronted Pharaoh. He had led a community through the sea. He had received the Torah. Yet when told that another servant possessed knowledge he did not have, Musa traveled to learn. Leadership had not made him unteachable. Experience had not made him complete. Status had not made seeking instruction beneath him. Many people want the authority of Musa. Few want the humility of Musa. They want to lead. They do not want to become beginners again. They want others to recognize their experience. They do not want to sit before knowledge that exposes its limits. Musa traveled. He experienced fatigue. He followed the sign involving a fish. When the sign was recognized, he returned along the path and found the servant taught through a special mercy and knowledge from Allah. Musa asked permission to follow and learn. He did not demand access based on prophetic rank. He asked. Al-Khidr warned that Musa would not be able to remain patient with what he could not yet understand. Musa promised patience if Allah willed and agreed not to disobey. The condition was clear. Musa was not to ask about an event until Al-Khidr explained it. They began traveling. They boarded a ship belonging to poor people who worked at sea. The people allowed them aboard. Al-Khidr damaged part of the ship. Musa objected. From what he could see, poor working people had shown generosity, and their property had been damaged in return. His moral reaction was reasonable according to visible evidence. Al-Khidr reminded him of the condition. Musa acknowledged that he had forgotten and asked not to be treated harshly for the mistake. The journey continued. They encountered a child. Al-Khidr killed the child. The event is morally shocking, and a family-friendly narration should not describe it graphically. Musa objected more strongly. The child had not been shown to have killed anyone. How could an apparently innocent life be taken? Again, Musa's response was based on the law and evidence available to him. Al-Khidr reminded him that patience would be impossible without knowledge of the full reality. Musa established a final condition for himself. If he questioned another event, their companionship could end. They reached a town whose people refused them food and hospitality. There they found a wall close to collapse. Al-Khidr repaired it. Musa observed that payment could have been requested from people who had refused even basic hospitality. This was the third question. The journey ended. Al-Khidr then explained, the ship belonged to poor people who depended on it for their work. A ruler was seizing every sound ship by force. The visible damage protected the vessel from complete confiscation. What appeared to be harm was limited harm, preventing greater harm. The child's future would have brought severe transgression and disbelief upon believing parents. Allah intended to replace the child with one better in purity and closer in mercy. This explanation belongs to revealed knowledge. It cannot be converted into a general human license. No person may look at a child, predict an evil future, and imitate Al-Khidr. Human beings do not possess independent access to the unseen. The event teaches the limit of human knowledge, not permission for human speculation or violence. The wall belonged to two orphan boys. A treasure had been preserved beneath it. Their father had been righteous. Allah intended that the children reach maturity and recover what belonged to them. The people of the town had shown no generosity. Still, mercy reached the orphans. Their father's righteousness became part of a protection that continued after him. The wall looked like unpaid labor performed for an undeserving town. Its actual beneficiaries were vulnerable children who were not present to ask for help. Al-Khidr stated that he had not acted independently. The events occurred within knowledge and instruction given by Allah. This is why the story cannot be used to excuse ordinary people who harm others while claiming a hidden wisdom. Al-Khidr's knowledge was revealed. Ours is not. Musa's questions were morally serious. The explanations revealed that his view, while sincere, was incomplete. The ship teaches that not every defect is destruction. A damaged opportunity may remain yours when a perfect one would have been seized. The child teaches that human beings cannot judge the full future through the visible present. It does not remove grief. It places ultimate knowledge with Allah. The wall teaches that goodness may protect people you will never meet, and that the benefit of righteous action can extend beyond the actor's lifetime. Together, the events teach epistemic humility. This means knowing the boundaries of what we know. A person can have strong evidence about one part of an event and remain ignorant of another. The correct response is not to abandon moral judgment. Musa was right to care about the poor owners, the child, and fair compensation. The response is to avoid claiming complete knowledge where only partial knowledge exists. Modern people face this constantly. A decision appears obviously harmful from one quarter's results. A protective control appears inefficient until the failure it prevents occurs. A rejected proposal appears like personal disrespect when information outside the person's view shaped the decision. A child experiences a boundary as cruelty without understanding the danger the parent sees. A public event is explained through one visible cause, while dozens of hidden conditions remain unknown. Humility does not mean accepting every claim that someone possesses secret knowledge. That would make manipulation easy. It means distinguishing evidence, revelation, interpretation, and uncertainty. Say what is known. Say what is inferred. Say what cannot be confirmed. Do not fill the unseen with a confident story merely because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. Musa's journey with Al-Khidr is not a story about a prophet failing to care. It is a story about a prophet caring deeply while learning that sincere moral reaction does not equal complete knowledge. The ability to learn this lesson is part of Musa's greatness. He traveled, he asked, he forgot, he was corrected, he tried again, he reached the limit of the companionship. He received the explanation. A person can be corrected without becoming dishonored. Correction becomes dishonoring only when ego has made appearing complete more important than becoming wiser. The Qarun does not provide one continuous final biography of Musa's last years. An authentic report from Prophet Muhammad preserves an account of Musa's death. The angel of death came to him in a form he did not initially recognize, and Musa struck him. The angel returned, and Musa was then offered additional years of life connected with the number of hairs covered by his hand upon an ox. Musa asked what would come after those additional years. The answer was death. Musa then chose that death should come and asked to be brought near the Holy Land, within the distance of a stone's throw. The report tells us that his grave was near a road beneath a red sand hill. It does not give modern people a verified site that should become an object of pilgrimage. The closing of Musa's life is emotionally powerful. The prophet, who had been refused entry into the Holy Land by the disobedience of his people, asked to die near it. He had carried the community toward a destination he would not personally possess. This is leadership without ownership. Some leaders believe that if they cannot personally enter the promised result, the work has failed. They want to see every benefit, receive every recognition, control every successor, stand at the final ceremony. Musa's responsibility was not validated by personal possession of every outcome. He delivered the message. He confronted Pharaoh. He led the people. He received revelation. He corrected. He taught. He prayed. He endured. He continued until his appointed time. The land belonged to the promise of Allah, not the ego of the leader. A person may plant what another generation harvests. A parent may establish values whose greatest results appear after death. A founder may build systems others eventually laid. A teacher may place knowledge in a student who reaches places the teacher never visits. A reformer may begin work that remains incomplete within one lifetime. Faithfulness is not the same as seeing completion. Musa's life began under a death order. His mother placed him into the river because remaining still was dangerous. His life ended near the land toward which he had led his people. Between river and grave stood one of the greatest journeys preserved in the Qarun. A child entered Pharaoh's household. A young man made a devastating mistake and repented. A fugitive served at a well. A worker fulfilled an agreement. A husband saw a fire. A servant was called. A brother asked for his brother. 2 messengers entered a palace. A staff overcame illusion. Experts recognized truth. Signs came. The sea opened. A community was rescued. A mountain received a manifestation it could not bear. A scripture was given. A calf exposed impatience. A brother defended the covenant. A leader learned the limits of anger. Water emerged from stone. A rescued people refused a gate. Wealth exposed another form of arrogance. And the teacher became a student. No single scene contains the whole meaning of Musa. His strength was real, so was his fear. His anger was real, so was his return to mercy. His knowledge was great, so was his willingness to learn. His leadership was central, so was his need for Harun. His miracles were extraordinary. So were the repeated ordinary responsibilities of patience, communication, work, and accountability. Before closing, we must address Al-Khidr. Al-Khidr was included in the original subject alongside Musa and Harun. The Quran names him in 2 brief places. He is named beside Ismail and Idris among those characterized by sabr and admitted into mercy as righteous people. He is also named beside Ismail and Al-Yasar among those described as excellent. That is what can be stated with confidence. The Quran does not provide a detailed story of his childhood, family, people, city, miracles, conflict, or death. The Quran does not connect him historically with Musa. Scholars have differed about whether Al-Khidr was a prophet and about possible historical identifications. I cannot confirm a detailed biography from the Quran or a reliable, authenticated report. Therefore, we will not invent one. This absence of detail is itself an important lesson in religious storytelling. Sometimes trustworthiness means speaking for an hour. Sometimes trustworthiness means stopping after 2 verses. A person may feel pressure to make every named figure into a dramatic episode. Details attract attention. Mystery invites speculation. Popular retellings become familiar, but familiarity does not transform a report into revelation. Thul-Kifl is honored without our knowing the events through which his sabr became visible. His righteousness is affirmed without a cinematic biography. His name is preserved while much of his life remains concealed. This reminds us that a life does not need to be publicly documented in order to be valuable before Allah. Many righteous people will never have their full stories told in this world. Their sacrifices may be known only to Allah. Their patience may leave no monument. Their best decisions may occur in private. Their names may never become famous. Thul-Kifl's brief mention resists the belief that significance requires visibility. The Quran gives us enough to honor him: patient, righteous, excellent. We should not pretend it gives us more. Now return one final time to the sea. At the shoreline, the children of Israel believed they were trapped. They could see the army, they could see the water, they could not see the path. Musa said his Lord would guide him. The sea opened. But the story did not end there, because rescue is not the end of guidance. After the sea came the mountain. After the mountain came the calf. After provision came complaint. After freedom came fear at the gate. After external tyranny came the internal danger of Qarun's wealth. After knowledge came a journey to learn its limits. The Quran does not preserve Musa's life merely to tell us that miracles happen. It shows what human beings do before, during, and after miracles. Some recognize the truth. Some promise change and break the promise. Some cross the sea and later demand an idol. Some receive provision and stop seeing it. Some escape a tyrant and envy a wealthy oppressor from their own community. Some possess great knowledge and still travel to learn. The story asks the listener a difficult question: what happens after your sea opens? When the crisis passes, do you return to the same habit? When the prayer is answered, does gratitude survive beyond the first week? When you leave an unhealthy environment, do you rebuild its culture somewhere else? When authority is placed in your hands, do you become another Pharaoh? When wealth arrives, do you become another Qarun? When you possess knowledge, can you still travel like Musa to learn? When the leader is absent, do your principles remain? When you cannot see the whole explanation, can you remain humble without abandoning moral responsibility? Musa's journey does not invite passive admiration. It asks who we become in relation to truth. Pharaoh saw signs and protected power. The magicians saw a sign and surrendered pride. Harun faced pressure and preserved the message. The calf worshippers saw an object and abandoned patience. Qarun saw wealth and forgot its source. Musa saw his own limits and continued learning. The same world can present evidence, responsibility, wealth, fear, and uncertainty to different people. Character determines what they do next. The child once carried by the river became the man who led a nation through the sea. The fugitive became the messenger who returned. The strong man became the servant who asked for forgiveness. The leader became the student who asked permission to follow. The brother who requested help remained connected to the brother who stood beside him. And when the end came, Musa did not demand endless life. He asked to be near the land toward which he had carried his people. Perhaps this is the final guidance of his journey. We are not asked to own every ending. We are asked to remain faithful within the part entrusted to us. Carry the message, use strength with justice, return after error, ask for help, speak truth without cruelty, do not sell knowledge to power, remember after rescue. Do not worship what you create, use wealth without allowing wealth to define you, learn even after becoming experienced, admit what you do not know, and when the path is hidden, do not confuse the absence of a visible road with the absence of guidance. The sea may still be closed. The next instruction may not yet have arrived. But the Lord who guided Musa from the river through exile into the palace, across the sea, toward the mountain, and through every season of responsibility remains the Lord of all worlds. You have been listening to the Guided Hour, where every journey carries a story and every story carries guidance. Until our next journey, may Allah increase us in beneficial knowledge and guide us toward what is true.